Welcome, everyone, to Ecology Live. I'm Jonathan Wood, Head of Society Programmes at the British Ecological Society. And this is the first in our series of 12 free online talks on the latest ecological research. They'll be running every Thursday from now until the end of May. I can see that already we have well over 250 people joining this session live. Thanks to you all. It's great that you're here. And wherever you are in the world, whether you're joining us live on Zoom or watching at a later time on YouTube, we hope you're staying safe and well. And we hope that this 30-minute dose of the best research, hearing from a great speaker each week, reminds you of how brilliant and diverse our subject is, while we all love ecology and what nature has to offer us. We thank Oxford University Press for sponsoring this whole season of Ecology Live, and you can find details of an Ecology Live reading list that they have put together, including exclusive discounts for viewers, on a slide at the end of the talk. So stay on to find out more. Thanks too to Wildlife Acoustics for the wonderful soundscape that welcomed us to this session. In a moment, we'll hear from Fernando Maestre. I just want to note, though, that you can use the Q&A box to submit your questions throughout the talk. There's no need to wait until the end. Your questions can be named or anonymous, you decide. And we'll see just how many of the questions we can get through at the end of the talk. The talk is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. So if you're watching there, do hit the subscribe button to get notified on when this and future videos come up. Or if you're catching up and want to join in live on Zoom, you can register for free on our website. Now it's time to introduce today's speaker, Fernando Maestre from the University of Alicante in Spain, where he leads the Dryland Ecology and Global Change Lab. Reading Fernando's biography is quite something. He joined the University of Alicante in 2019 as a distinguished scientist, and previously he'd conducted research in top institutions in the USA, in China, Australia, the UK and Germany. He's one of the few scientists working in Spain in any subject to have received both a starting and consolidator grant from the European Research Council, the ERC. Fernando is also within the top 1% of most cited authors worldwide. He's been on the editorial board of several journals and has received multiple international awards. But what I think quite special among all of this is the effort Fernando puts into mentoring up-and-coming scientists and the strong views he has on improving research culture and well-being for researchers as well. So to today's talk, Fernando will be explaining how we can follow in the footsteps of the great 18th and 19th century naturalist, Alexander von Humboldt, to better understand the ecology of our planet through global scientific collaboration. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to our speaker. Fernando, over to you.
Thanks a lot, John, for this very nice introduction. I will share my screen now. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining this talk live, or also thanks if you are watching it later on YouTube. Before I start, I would like to thank the British Ecological Society and the organizers of this series for inviting me to be here today. It's really a pleasure to be able to talk and to give a seminar within this really amazing series of seminars, and to be among this distinguished list of speakers, of great scientists from all over the world. From my talk today, I have prepared a very simple talk, which I hope that you will find engaging. And I just would like to show how we have been following, or try to follow with modesty, of course, the footsteps of Alexander von Humboldt when trying to understand the ecology of our planet through global scientific collaborations, and in particular, how we have followed his steps when studying the ecology of global drylands. So, you know who Alexander von Humboldt is, so I will not spend much time talking about him. As you know, he's truly a pioneer of global science. Perhaps he has been the first global scientist, or at least the first global ecologist, biographer, geographer, and it has been his biography is truly remarkable. He has been a real multidisciplinary scientist, and he developed a unified vision for the environmental sciences that integrated traditional disciplines at the time, like botany, zoology, physics, with emerging disciplines like ecology, economy, climatology, or geology. And he did so in a very successful way. His work, he really launched a distinctly Humboldtian style of doing science. And one of the main characteristics of the way he worked was to gather a very large number of data of spatial and temporal reference observation of environmental variables, and also of human variables like cultural practices. These observations were led to many groundbreaking discoveries at the time, and revealed spatial and temporal patterns at a scale at a global scale that were not understood before, and that provided a lot of information about underlying physical and biological processes and relationships. And we can see, for instance, here one of this very famous map of climatic, the climate of the Earth developed thanks to the observations of Alexander von Humboldt, or of course the Chimborazo map. Who doesn't know this amazing picture where he compiled in a single graph in an amazing way the information about vegetation changes along this volcano in Ecuador. The careful observation of nature, together with extensive travel and the setup of collaborations with multiple scientists across the world, were landmark characteristics of Humboldt's work. Are characteristics that have lived up to today, and are a key part of Humboldt's scientific legacy. So Humboldt, he was born 250 years ago, and some of you may wonder why we are still talking about Humboldt today, or why it's relevant to talk and to follow Humboldt's steps today. Well, as you know, we are facing right now many major environmental issues like climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation, and many others that affect all countries, affect all of our societies, and require the development of global approaches to understand them and the international collaboration to solve them and to come with solutions to these problems that will ensure not the survival of ourselves as a species, but the survival of our livelihoods and our societies as we know them. So a Humboldtian approach to study these environmental issues and the ecological consequences is not only very timely, but also urgently needed. So it's something that is very relevant today on the 250, or this year it will be the 251 anniversary of Humboldt's period. So I would like now to briefly share with you how we have been, with modesty, as I say, following or trying to follow Humboldt's step when studying the ecology of global drylands and the responses to climate change and other global change drivers. And for doing so, I guess many of you, maybe not all of you, will be familiar with dryland ecosystems. As you can see in these pictures, these are areas characterized by the lack of resources, mostly water. There is not, these areas across the world don't have usually enough rainfall to support a continuous landscape, or a landscape covered with continuous vegetation. So we typically find these mosaic vegetation types where discrete plant patches are located in a matrix. Or the southeast of Spain, or in an African savanna in Kenya, for instance. This is a quite distinctive characteristic of dryland ecosystems worldwide. Drylands are really very interesting ecosystems to study for an ecologist for multiple reasons. They have a unique biodiversity packed with endemisms, and with species that have developed particular physiological, evolutionary, and other type of adaptations to support the harsh environmental conditions that can be found in these areas, and are really, really relevant at the global scale for multiple reasons. First, because they cover more than 40% of terrestrial surface, and they are the home of over 40% of the global population. They are also very important regulating the climate, the global climate. These areas have a large carbon stocks in the soils, particularly in organic carbon, and they are critical for the global sustainability of our planet for multiple reasons. Not only because they host, as I say, over 40% of the global population, but also because they host more than 40% of global croplands and over 50% of global livestock. They also are the home of some of the poorest human populations on the planet, and indeed more than 1 billion people directly depends on the ecosystem, the services provided by dryland ecosystems for their livelihoods. So they are really key ecosystems that we really need to understand better. And I say this because one of the things that motivated me to work in drylands, I come from the southeast of Spain, so I come from a dryland region. I was raised as a person and as a scientist in this area, so I have a personal appreciation for the type of landscapes that we can find at home. But also, to me, something very important to study drylands is that when I became interested in ecology during my biology studies, I was really surprised to see in all the ecology textbooks, in the major, in most articles that I started to read by then, that most theories, most ecological evidence came from non-dryland ecosystems. And this is something that still persists today. If you look at really important ecological topics or hot ecological topics, research topics that have been studied over the last decades, we can see, for instance, in fields like the biodiversity, ecosystem functioning research, how the bulk of knowledge comes from ecosystems that are not drylands. And this is one of the main motivations for me and for people working in my lab or collaborators to contribute to fill this gap. And we have been putting a lot of effort to work at the global scale and to try to follow Humboldt's footsteps for doing that. And we have done this in several ways. And one of the most rewarding research endeavors I have been involved over my career has been the Biocom Global Collaborative Network. It's a network that I had the privilege to coordinate between 2006 and 2016, and is a network of researchers working in drylands all over the world that had as a main objective to evaluate the relationships between abiotic factors, ecosystem structure, and functioning across drylands worldwide. This is a very simple, basic ecological question. Just look at the relationship between abiotic factors, ecosystem structure, abiotic factors, which is something that is not very original, it's not very novel, and that has been done in many ecosystems over decades, over many years. However, not much of this work has been carried out in drylands. And understanding how biotic attributes like diversity, species abundance, spatial patterns, and affect key ecosystem processes that drive ecosystem functioning and the provision of essential ecosystem services like productivity or nutrient cycling, and how these relationships are affected by abiotic factors is not only critical to understand and to manage, to understand how dryland ecosystems functions, to manage them, but also to understand how major global change drivers like climate change or changes in land use or land use intensity will affect drylands, and also will drive other environmental problems specific of these areas like land degradation and desertification. Desertification is defined as land degradation in arid, semi-arid, and dry subhumid ecosystems driven by climate change and human activities. So as part of this network, we conducted the first global field survey carried out, or focusing specifically on drylands, and that was carried out using standardized surveys. This survey involved the work of more than 100 scientists from 30 research groups and working in 19 countries from all continents except Antarctica. We were able to gather field data, in situ information from over 240 dryland ecosystems, and we conducted field surveys using a standardized protocol, and we gathered a quite rich, a large number of variables that characterize the structure and functioning of these ecosystems. We collected vegetation data to characterize the cover, the spatial pattern, the diversity of plant communities. We also collected soil samples, and all these soil samples were shipped to Spain and were analyzed either in my lab or in the lab of some of other collaborators. But all the soil samples, all the soil variables were analyzed in the same lab, using the same protocols, so we can truly compare the data without the problems of dealing with multiple labs for analyzing the same variables. We analyzed over 18 variables per sample. We collected more than 3,000 soil samples, and we, as the numbers are here, a very large number of vegetation trunk sets and quadrats to characterize vegetation structure. Using these samples, we conducted multiple physicochemical, biological, and molecular analysis to characterize multiple soil variables related to carbon, phosphorus, and nitrogen cycling, related to important functions that drive soil fertility and vegetation growth and multiple supporting ecosystem services. We also quantified primary vegetation productivity using remote sensing information and using databases. For instance, we estimated other important attributes like plant functional diversity. We were also able to freeze soils from over 80 sites, and we used these samples also to characterize soil microbial communities using molecular techniques. So this is a very rich database, which is also really nice because it captures most of the environmental and vegetation conditions and soil conditions that you can find across global drylands. We have all sorts of vegetation types that you can find there, from pure grasslands to pure shrublands, all the way in between. We have dry forests, for instance, like typical eucalyptus forest in Australia. We also have African savannas. We have sites close to the sea in Spain, or sites at more than 4,000 meters in Peru. We have sites with less than 100 millimeters of rainfall per year in the south of Tunisia, and sites with more than 1,000 millimeters of rain per year, for instance, in Venezuela. We have more than 20 different soil categories, and it's a nice snapshot of natural and semi-natural drylands ecosystem worldwide. We didn't control for human uses. For instance, many of these sites are being grazed, but of course we exclude highly disturbed sites. We didn't sample in agricultural areas, urban areas, or areas that have been heavily disturbed by human activities like infrastructures, etc. And how we did it? This is a very interesting question that I got multiple times over the years, and we did it, or I did it, without a clear intention of doing it, because everything started with a very small project that with my starting package. When I returned to Spain before coming to Alicante in 2019, in 2005, I joined Rey Juan Carlos University, Móstoles, close to Madrid, and my startup package was an office, a desk, a computer, and 14,000 euros given by the Spanish Ministry of Education and Science. And soon after that, I got a small project from the Madrid regional government, and with these small funds, we set up protocols and established some field sites in Spain, again looking at this question between looking at the relationships between ecosystem structure and functioning across Spanish drylands. In 2007, we were able to expand this network to Latin America, multiple Latin American countries, thanks to funding by FITEB. FITEB is a funding body between Spain, Portugal, and all Latin American countries that focus on capacity building. So they fund projects that don't give you money for doing actual work, for doing the research, but they give you money for doing networking and for facilitating the exchange of students and staff. And that's what this project was really fundamental to expand the network to Latin America. So what we did here is we use the same field protocols that we use in Spain. All Latin American colleagues use them in Argentina, in Ecuador, in Venezuela, in Mexico, in Chile, and also in Brazil. And in 2009, I was very fortunate to receive a starting grant from the European Research Council, and this allowed me to expand this network to become a truly global, and of course give us the resources to analyze all the soil samples, to also do field work in other countries, and also to support other colleagues doing field work in other areas. So this is how we did it, and what did we got? What did we get from this network? Really multiple things and very rewarding ones. Of course, we are scientists, right? And we need to communicate the results of our work, and the main currency that we use today as still are the scientific articles. So we have published the results of coming from this global survey in more than 60 articles that have provided multiple and novel insights on the ecology of global drylands and to responses to global environmental change and to climate change in particular. We have, I like to say that the database that we have built is not perfect for almost anyone, but it's good enough to explore a bunch of things, many questions. And for instance, we have explored the relationship between diversity at multiple levels, plant, microbial, taxonomical, phylogenetical, functional, diversity and ecosystem functioning and multifunctionality. We have explored how ecosystem structure and functioning change across global aridity gradients, across global drylands. We have also used soil samples to do incubations in the lab to explore different questions related to soil respiration and to microbial structure and functioning. And this has been something really, this survey really has provided important insights that have advanced our understanding of ecology of global drylands. But to me, the publications, being really important, have not been the most important output of this project. Something unique and really that I'm really happy with and that has worked really well are all the connections that have been established between the members of the network. As part of the network, or the network have provided a platform for multiple local, regional, and international collaborations. It has also supported the careers of more than 20 PhD and postdoctoral researchers worldwide, and has contributed to the scientific capacity building of many groups in developing countries and to the professional careers of dozens of colleagues from around the world. And this is something to be very important. And also, an important product of this network has been outreaching. I'm in my lab and myself, we have put lots of efforts over the years, and we still do, because we think that is important, in disseminating not only the results of our research, but also communicating about the importance of drylands. And the results that we got, the attention that we get from the media have really contributed to increase public awareness about dryland ecosystems across the world. We have been on TV, we have been on the press multiple times, and in many countries. And this is something also that is really important for us and for me in particular. And it's also a very important product of this global network. And to end my talk, I would like to just share some advice for those of you that are interested also in trying to follow Humboldt's step and that are interested in setting up global research network to explore ecological issues or to explore ecological questions or to test particular hypotheses. So I will, in the line of this very famous series of 10 simple rules, right, papers, which I guess many of you will know. I will just very briefly mention 10 key rules that I think are very important to take, that must be taken into account when designing and when executing this type of global collaborative networks. I will very briefly mention them, but if you are interested on them, you can find them very much more explained in this article. So the first one, which is very important, is of course we need to have a clear question or set of questions to launch a network, right? What is the rationale? What we want to do by doing this global network, right? And related to this is also very important, particularly if you want the network to work and to succeed in countries that don't have access to or have very limited access to research funds, and that these questions can be explored using simple protocols, cheap protocols that can be implemented in many places across the world, and that can be carried out without lots of money, right? And of course, these protocols must be tested and must be bulletproof. In the case of the Biocom survey, all we need, of course, botanical knowledge, that's very important, a hammer and a soil corer, some plastic bags, a quadrat, and a tape. This was the essential protocol the essential material that we use to gather all this information in the field, of course. Is something very important, and many people underestimate the work it takes to set up, to coordinate, and to analyze, publish, and so on, everything coming from a global network. So it's very important to plan ahead carefully. A global network requires lots of attention and dedication to be successful. So this is something that must be, for those of you thinking about setting up one, you need to think really about it. Of course, one person cannot do everything. That's something, it's a lot of work. So it's very important to form a team with a clear task division. We need to delegate important tasks in other colleagues, either from our lab or from other labs, in order for a network to be successful. Something very important also is that we need to be responsive and build trustful relationships. So we really need to respond to emails. We really need to be ready to answer questions and to discuss issues arising during the fieldwork. Even no matter how clear your protocols are, no matter how detailed your protocols are, there will be colleagues that have questions once that they try to implement in the field. I remember not only of answering hundreds of emails, but I remember sometimes over the phone with some colleagues in remote parts of the world, they have on time doubts about what they were doing, and we try to answer them on real time or near real time. So it's very important to make sure your network colleagues that you are there, you are ready to help them and to support them to carry out the work successfully. Something also that I think is important is to form a scientific advisory that can provide advice about the science behind the network and the results, the analysis, the publications coming out from it, and also conflict resolution boards. Of course, we all collaborate in a healthy manner. We want to work together, but sometimes problems arise. Sometimes there are conflicts because of multiple reasons, and I think it's important to have a board, either from people from the network or from outside the network, that can help to solve issues, problems between different network members when they arise. Also related to this, and to avoid problems, it's very important to develop in written clear policies about the use of network resources like data, like samples, and the publication of results. I have seen many people getting upset or conflicts that have arisen because of this. And I think it's very important to have clear written rules so everyone joining the network knows what the rules are, and of course follow the rules for everyone. It's very important for a network to succeed to foster active engagement within and beyond the network, either by inviting people outside the network to contribute to the objectives of the network, and of course to make sure that everyone in the network is actively engaged and can collaborate on not only on collecting the data, but also on analyzing them, on writing the papers, on proposing ideas, on conducting outreaching activities, and so on and so forth. Something that in my experience is very important is if you want to do a global network, try to be truly global and target traditionally understudied regions. I know it's not easy. There are huge logistical challenges with working in many African, Asian, Latin American countries because of multiple reasons, but it's something that we really must make an effort because to fill a gap. I have seen many global networks where 95% of the sites come from either Europe or North America or Australia, and very few sites outside these regions. So if we really want to gather knowledge from not only at the global scale, but particularly cover current knowledge gaps, we really need to target traditionally understudied regions. This is something very important in my opinion. Something that sometimes we are not many aware of are legal issues that are very important when working with biological samples with soils from multiple parts of the world. Now there are strict international regulations like the Nagoya Protocol. Different countries have different import-export laws. So we really need to fulfill them and to follow strictly them in order for a global network to succeed. And this also takes time. For instance, in our case, we had a dedicated technician to deal with these issues, and it may take months of work of a person. So it's something that we must not underestimate because it's also very important. And the last one, I think, is also critical that our network provides a safe space for everyone, a space when everyone is welcome, where everyone can express their opinions with respect and without being harassed or disturbed in any way by anyone. I think this is crucial. And related to this, of course, it's also very important to promote the participation of women and colleagues from underrepresented groups. There are lots of discussion on this, and it's a very, very important discussion we must have. And in the context of global network, is something that we really need to promote. And that's it. That's all I wanted to share with you today. As you have seen, has been a simple talk. I have not presented any hard science, but I hope that you will find this journey interesting. And of course, before ending it, I would like to, of course, give my most sincere thanks to all my lab members of current and past, and all of global collaborators all over the world, because this work has been possible thanks to them, and it also has been a real pleasure to work with all of them in this global survey. It has been a wonderful journey. And of course, thanks to all the funding agencies that have supported the work over the year and these global efforts, and particularly the European Research Council that has been supporting my lab over the last 10 years. And also, an important thanks go to the British Ecological Society, who provided me with one of these, now it's called large grants, right? But one of these grants, when I was setting up my lab, that also helped a lot with this and with other work. And that's all. Thanks a lot to everyone for listening. And if there is any question and we have time, I will be happy to answer it. And if we don't have time now and you have a question, please, if you're in Twitter, you can use my Twitter handle, make a question, and I will be happy to answer it. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks so much, Fernando. A brilliant talk. And it's, like you say, it's nice actually to have a talk that's not just about research results, but is honest about the process of research and actually how much project management goes into a massive global research collaboration like this. So we have just passed 3:30, but I'm going to see if we can answer a few quick questions because people have shared a number through the talk. Beth Lee had a question. She asked, what sorts of things have your results suggested we can do to protect and conserve drylands?
Well, one of the most important results that come up with most of our analysis is the importance of biodiversity of plants and microbial for maintaining ecosystem functioning. So me, it's clear, right? So we need to protect them. We need to protect the biodiversity and whenever possible to restore it. But just a simple answer, try to protect dryland biodiversity because it plays a key role in sustaining the functioning and the services provided by these ecosystems.
Great, thanks. And a question from an anonymous attendee. They ask, how can we access data from the Biocom network?
Yeah, all the data are published together with the papers. So with every paper we have published, the data are published with the paper. The particular data used in that paper, all of them are in public repositories, or all of them can be used for free. And yeah, and now we are right now working something that is I'm lagging behind of this for a couple of 2 or 3 years, but hopefully during this year we will submit a data paper with the full complete data that we have generated over the project, because right now we have published most of the data, but not all the data together in a single place. And stay tuned, because yeah, hopefully later on this year, early next year, there will be a data paper with all the data from this network.
Great, that's good news. So stay tuned on that one. I was interested by a question from Carolina Ocampo. She asks, did you have any issues due to cultural differences with international collaborators, and how did you overcome them?
Well, there have been some of them, and sometimes it's not easy to handle, as you can imagine. Of course, in our case, myself being from Spain and understanding the language, for instance, it helps a lot to deal with our Latin American colleagues, because this is, and the language and the culture that's very important. But sometimes, yeah, we had conflicts, for instance, that had been difficult to solve, because, for instance, sometimes I did, as you can imagine, when looking for co-authors for the papers, like the PI of every group, he or she tell me the names. So, and sometimes, for instance, there were some conflicts within the groups that, as you can imagine, I could not solve directly, and I didn't know. And we had some of them, not many, fortunately. Everyone, I think, behaved really, really well. And because of this, and that's something that we didn't have for Biocom. And now, for instance, we are in another network where we set up a conflict board, right? That's why I say it's very important to have rules that when these things emerge, people can complain, make some kind of formal complaint to this board where they can find a solution, right? But yeah, I think it's even if it's sad sometimes, but yeah, humans are complex, and even when we try to do our best to do well, some people sometimes don't behave in a proper way, and when dealing with so many people, sometimes conflicts are unavoidable. But yeah, we have done our best, and as I say, we have been really lucky. We have been working very well together, and they have been a very, very minor thing, but they are important, of course, and for the people affected, they can be very important.
Yeah, sure. So about recognizing we're all human and being prepared for that in advance, right? Kevin Mganga has a question. He says, African dryland environments are generally remote and often characterized by insecurity, cattle rustling, and banditry. This has contributed to few studies being conducted in such regions. And have you experienced such challenges, especially in the global south?
Yes, fortunately, yes. And this is one of the reasons that we were not able to gather data in African countries that we were planning to, because of security issues. And for instance, of course, I really, when designing and executing these global networks, I really like to do it through collaborators. I don't like to do helicopter science where if we have the funds, we go to the place, collect the data, and go. I really want to build collaborations with local scientists when needed, to train them, to help them, and to have them as a partners, right? And for instance, in some cases, or local collaborators were planning to do fieldwork in particular countries, in particular regions, and eventually it didn't work out because of security issues. This is one of the problems, not only in Africa, of course, unfortunately, in many parts is a real problem, but also in other regions of the world, for instance, like the Middle East or in countries like Iraq or Afghanistan, dryland countries where it's really very difficult to get field data because of security issues.
Yeah, so there you go, Kevin. It certainly is an issue. I'm going to finish with one last question, if that's all right, because I really liked it. It comes from an anonymous attendee again. They ask, is there anything you wish you'd known when you started the project?
Well, that's a good question, because, as I say, when everything started, it was not made with the idea of making it global. But of course, we learn by doing. And for instance, something that I really should have set up or done better at the time is to have clear rules for co-authorship in written, that at the time were not so clear. And as I said before, having these conflict resolution boards that, as I say, even if they have been very, very, very few, to me, and particularly as you mentioned before in the introduction, I'm a person that really takes care. For me, it's extremely important that everyone is happy, that everyone is collaborating well, and that everyone feels that their work is being recognized as it should be. For me, it has been sometimes painful to see how people that should have been recognized, or their work should have been recognized, because of the behavior of some PIs, eventually this didn't happen. And yeah, this is perhaps something that if I knew in advance, I would have tried to do the things better. Yeah.
Great. A good lesson for us all there. So thanks very much, Fernando. And thanks to everyone for joining the talk online as well. If you asked a question that didn't get answered or have more questions, Fernando said he's kindly agreed really to answer some further questions on Twitter. So post your question to him at his Twitter handle, that's at @FTMaestre, and use the hashtag #EcologyLive. Now, next week at the same time, we have Catherine Suding from the University of Colorado, Boulder, and she'll introduce us to resilience, recovery, and the ecology of change. So that's next Thursday at 3 p.m. And you can find out more about the other excellent talks we have lined up for the weeks to come on our website. And of course, if you've enjoyed today's talk, why not find out more about what the British Ecological Society has to offer? For example, we make over £450,000 available in funding each year in research grants, outreach and training and travel. Our first grant round for this year, 2021, is currently open. And the deadline, as you see there, is the 19th of March, 2 weeks' time to get your applications in. All the instructions are on the funding section of our website. So that brings today's Ecology Live nearly to a close, but I promised you earlier details of the book discounts from our sponsor, Oxford University Press, OUP. So follow the link on the screen here, and I believe it's about to appear in the chat as well, and use that discount code for an exclusive 30% off select Ecology titles, just for you Ecology Live viewers. We'll leave that up on the screen, and we hope to see you again next Thursday. Thanks very much, and goodbye.